Hey, welcome to the Practitioner's Heart, offering practical Buddhist wisdom for therapists and healthcare workers. If you are keen to deepen your practice beyond the theoretical understanding of Buddhism, if you are finding it hard to calm your little active mind after therapy work, I welcome you to join me to dive a little deeper. Each episode, I'll be sharing some common issues that therapists may face when integrating and practicing awareness, compassion within themselves and also supporting clients. I'll be sprinkling some pearls of wisdom that I've learned from my master and teachers that will be helpful as internal resources. I'll also be interviewing other therapists who are on this spiritual path together to share their experiences of how they practice wisdom and compassion in their daily lives. I want to let you know that you're not alone. You are part of a bigger community who aspire for greater soul alignment, growth, and awakening. That we can strike a balance of juggling our busy modern life as therapists with a clear mind and an open heart. I hope to inspire more practitioners to explore deeper spiritual meaning and purpose on our path to enlightenment. I'm your host, Poh and Amiee, a psychologist, a Buddhist practitioner, a parent of 2 children, a fellow human being with a busy mind, but with a great inspired vision for collective awakening. Let's begin. Welcome back. I'm sitting here, finished editing my conversation with Amiee, feeling very special to share this episode with you. This is Amie's first podcast episode, and I hope that I've made her feel comfortable. In fact, both of us have never met each other before, despite previously connected on Facebook messages that we both are neurodivergent and loves Buddhism. So I know very little about her, but I'm just amazed that she was so open to share with us her story. It was very moving for me, actually. And she spoke beautifully about the pressure of needing to have it all figured out, to present as a polished, perfect version of ourselves as an early career psychologist, which I could relate so much. She's embodying this piece where when we create space for our authenticity, we give others permission to do the same. So if you ever wonder if like Buddhism and ADHD or ADHD or neurodivergent have anything to do with one another, be sure to listen to both episodes. So the first part of the conversation will be more about Amie's journey and then the discovery of her neurodivergent identity. Then the second part of the conversation, which will be released next week, will be more about how we dive deep into the specific Buddhist teachings that guided her, the lessons learned from silent retreat, and the challenges of bringing this peace and awareness back into the chaos of daily life as a practitioner, a mother, and a human being. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Welcome to the Practitioner's Heart podcast. I'm very excited to be joined today by Amiee Pember. She is an autistic and ADHD perinatal psychologist and board-approved supervisor based in the southwest of Western Australia, very close to me. Her work is grounded in a deep commitment to personal authenticity, professional integrity, and ongoing reflective practice, values that guide her as both clinician and educator. Amie's clinical and educational focus centers on the relational and developmental needs of neurodivergent families in the perinatal period. She integrates acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, compassion-focused therapy, CFT, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, within a neurodiversity affirming attachment-informed framework. She is a proud member of the Australian Association of Psychologists, AAPI, the League of Autistic Psychologists and Affirming Colleagues, LAWPAC, and the Centre for Perinatal Psychology, CPP. Additionally, Amiee is a selected supervisor for the Perinatal Training Centre's Committee of Supervisors. Amiee also serves on the Board of Advisors for the Perinatal Training Centre's 2025 conference supporting autistic and ADHD folk in the perinatal period. Her ongoing professional development reflects a genuine commitment to reflective supervision, continuous growth, and inclusive, strengths-based practice, both for herself and the clinicians she supports. Through NeuroBloom, Amiee models what she teaches, that reflection deepens understanding, integration builds confidence, and authentic connection allows both clinicians and families to truly bloom. Amiee, thank you for being here.
My mind is going to Buddhist attachment to identity.
No, but it really gives people a flavor of who you are as a person and some of your experience, and the conversation that we are going to have is going to be so rich today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. It's special because you're the first person that I'm doing a podcast with. Yeah. I'm really honored to be on this with you. So thanks, Poh.
I'm very honored too that I'll be your first. Yes. Let's start with something small. What has been something small that's bringing you joy lately?
Oh, this year I'm trying to work on a better life-work balance. And so I'm learning to play Minecraft with my children.
Oh, cool. What are the things that you're building in Minecraft?
At the moment, I'm not building. I'm a thing that I've learnt to do.
That sounds cool. Yes.
But it's joyful because it's really lovely to see how they kind of just come into themselves being in that role of teaching me and seeing me struggle with something because I find it hard.
Yes.
And seeing how they manage frustration with me.
I've actually tried to play Minecraft with my kids before as well, and it was really fun, actually. It's such a good connection exercise with our kids, isn't it?
It's, I think, until this year, I feel like I've just been very, very, very busy. I think since having children, I've been very busy and finding that juggle hard. And so I don't feel that they've really had an opportunity to have that role reversal of teaching me before. We get to laugh so much. We laugh at me, but I think that's an important experience for our children to see us as always beginners. I love the concept of beginner's mind. And that's what Minecraft is offering me. Yeah. And it's offering them the experience of seeing me that way.
I love that. That's cute. That's awesome. I think it's good to start off the conversations with something light like this, because it really connects us as human and that relationship part that we all enjoy, and the joy of, connecting with people that we love. Thank you for sharing that experience with us. And can you perhaps share a little bit about who you are, who Amiee is, and what brought you to the path of helping? Because your work sits quite beautifully on that intersection of perinatal psychology, neurodiversity, and also contemplative practice.
Yes. So I've always had an interest in people. I can't remember not being interested in people. I remember when I was 12, I bought a book for myself called teen esteem from
Ooh.
Boffins or something in Perth, you know.
Okay.
But I used my money to buy that book. I think like going through high school, I tended to be someone that kids would come to talk to, like even the kids that were nothing like me, like if I was the people-pleasing, like good girl. So like all of like the bad boys or the girls that were kind of in that same social group, yeah, they would just end up coming and sitting quietly to talk with me when there were things on their minds. And so I think it's actually just a part of who I am. And my mum had postnatal depression with I'm the eldest of 5 children. And so I was 10 when mum had postnatal. So that's of an age where it's quite a significant experience in terms of, I think, a child's identity. That wasn't what led me down the path of perinatal. It's just like part of all of the experiences that led me through the pursuing psychology. And I studied a master's in community psychology instead of clinical.
Good. Yes, yes, yes. I've always loved community psychology, actually.
Yeah. Which uni did you go to?
I went to Curtin University, and then after in master's, I went to UWA.
Okay. So I went to ECU because it enabled me to start studying externally through distance ed. I was living in Bridgetown at the time, and through studying at ECU, I was exposed to community psychology. We had wonderful lecturers like Dawn Darliston-Jones and Lauren Breen. They taught a few of my classes. And so I was exposed to social diversity, cultural diversity, social justice, the sense of the importance of that kind of community joining for well-being. And I think it fit with the experience I had growing up in rural WA. So, yeah, I kind of just, again, it was like a heart decision. It wasn't a head decision to pursue community psych. I guess it was my own transition experience to motherhood that then led me to kind of really hyper-focus, deep dive on perinatal and infant mental health. My eldest is 12, so it's kind of the last 12 years that I feel like I've really found myself. I tried to kind of give you a snapshot of like how.
Yeah, you did a really good job of like, you know, the snippets of like the seeds that planted through your journey to lead to where you are here. Yeah, I think that's cool. And my oldest is 12 years old as well, so we're probably pregnant around the same time. Yeah. But I agree with you, like motherhood is such a transformative experience of going beyond ourselves and having to have that role of caring for other people. And through that relationships, we actually perhaps understanding ourselves a little bit more in that interaction. Yeah. I would love to explore, unpack that a little bit more with you.
Yes, we can go there.
So what drew you to explore Buddhism or mindfulness or compassion? How did that first come to connect with your work as a psychologist?
So in hindsight, I was exposed to a lot of my dad was very interested in, like, his kind of focus was martial arts. Since I was little, I grew up hearing about different religious traditions, different spiritualities. My immediate family were not kind of following any particular institution or spiritual path. So I first was exposed to Buddhism through discussions with Dad alongside yoga as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
But I kind of that didn't that wasn't yet a part of me. It's just now in hindsight, it's a part of perhaps what was just planted, right?
Yeah.
But it was actually in 2009, my first year out of uni, working as a registered psychologist. I'd been at uni for 7 years and I felt very comfortable at uni. And, it was like my community and my environment. I understood the systems. And yeah, my first job out of uni was working as a rehab consultant psychologist in interim management for a private organization. I just couldn't settle. Like I was so far out of my comfort zone. And that was the first diagnosed episode of generalized anxiety disorder that I experienced.
Right. Yeah.
At least that's what the diagnosis was at the time.
Yeah.
I had 6 sessions with a fabulous clinical psych. I went in there saying, I need CBT to fix this anxiety. And he introduced me to ACT. He lent me a copy of The Happiness Trap. The first edition this was by Russ Harris. And I naturally read it. I did my homework.
Oh, good on you.
I didn't have children yet.
That's right.
But also it was really intense anxiety. I was basically calling in sick every Monday, the pattern of it would hit Sunday night. I would have that overwhelming anxiety. I wouldn't be able to go into work. And so the happiness trap really started bringing in a bit of that more formal mindfulness practice. And the work that psych did was planting the seeds of helping me to develop more acceptance around my internal experience. But the other thing that he did beautifully was, me back then, I felt like such an imposter. It was the first time I saw a psych. It was I'm a psychologist and I can't even fix myself.
Aww.
And then I was seeing a clinical psychologist who, at the time, I had this real hierarchy in my mind. I didn't see him as human.
The God.
And he's going to tell me that you're not cut out for this. That was all those deep-seated, not good enough thoughts. Yeah. And so, it took a lot of courage to go, but I think it was fear-driven courage. But what he did beautifully was he really treated me as a human being. I shared with him those imposter kind of anxieties that I was having. And he didn't get into debating them with me. He didn't challenge them with me. He actually just did an amazing job of kind of normalizing, but it was his behavior. It was the modeling of compassion and that unconditional positive regard that he had for me that helped, I think, see that I could, there was room. It just a seed at that stage, but there was room to be a psychologist and to be human. And I don't have to have fixed myself to be able to help others. So I actually really think he was foundational. His work. And through that, I got back into yoga. Well, kind of as in I started going to yoga to learn to be mindful in my body and stuff. Once a week, it was clear that it wasn't enough for me. I'm getting a benefit, but it only lasts a day, And so I would say that I was more a yoga practitioner even before I really moved into Buddhism.
Yeah, that is such a a cool experience, and thank you for sharing that quite openly and vulnerably, and to talk about your early experience working as a psychologist. I think a lot of us, when we first started out, and we thought that, like, it means that we have to have everything together, and that shame of like, oh, I'm feeling all of this imposter syndrome, and that vulnerability, and having that safe emotional experience to be with your psychologist to make sense of that seems to have made a huge difference. And then that led you to going more in yoga, which has a continuous ongoing effect of helping you to regulate your body and your nervous system.
100%. I mean, at that start of the yoga, I can't remember now if there was an overlap in terms of starting the formal yoga practice alongside still seeing the psych, because I had 6 sessions with him, read The Happiness Trap, started practicing Russ Harris's, it was a CD back then, but Happiness Tracks.
Yes.
So I liked the structure of having that grounding voice.
Yeah.
But it made such a huge difference. I actually, at that stage, with where I was at, I only had the 6 sessions, and we'd planned a follow-up, and I actually didn't feel the need to. And so instead, the yoga became a kind of, it was through the experience of starting the practice, seeing the benefits, recognizing that I wanted to practice more. It wasn't a rule in my mind. It was just kind of an intuitive sense of knowing that practicing more regularly would help support mindfulness in the day.
Definitely.
In my work and stuff. And so as that increased is when I had great teachers. So they would drip in kind of teachings around like the 8 limbs, kind of making those connections between the practice on the mat as being about practice for life.
Yeah, definitely.
So I studied yoga and did a 350-hour yoga teaching.
So are you a yoga teacher?
I'm trained. I haven't practiced to teach since I had my second child, Luca.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Because I needed the yoga to be for my well-being. And when I teach, it's about being that grounding presence. It's about giving. Since having the children and working as a psych as well, I didn't have anything more to give.
Sometimes you just needed that space to practice for yourself rather than providing for other people that space, which is fair enough. I can't imagine you trying to do it all. But it is cool that like you understand how to teach and the teachings and the theories behind why yoga works. And I think some of the somatic work that I've learned over time, and they talk a lot about yoga, and it is very similar to the Buddhism way of teaching and like how to relate to your mind and all of that. It is all really connected.
Yes. Well, I think also because alongside that path with the yoga, after having experienced the power of acceptance and commitment therapy, I kind of hyper-focused on wanting to learn it because I was like, I've experienced this at that stage when the psych Jared introduced it to me. I didn't understand it. Like I'm in danger of, as a client, if I intellectualize, which is my comfortable place to go in, then I can really ignore that emotional needs. I think because it was experiential, it was that kind of joining together mind and body. And so then when I was learning about it, and doing the training with Russ, which is, you know, he's very experiential, Russ Harris, in how he teaches therapists as well. I was learning it and using it therapeutically. So that's happening alongside while I was learning yoga teacher training as well. So I think it was like one of the final assignments I did was actually like an essay to show how ideas around the mind in yoga are psychologically understood through acceptance and commitment therapy. So, you know, this intentional integrating of both into this paper that I wrote.
Wow, that will be so cool. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So,
and I guess like that's leading you to practice more experientially in your work in therapy, being really mindful of the body and the emotions, and as well as all the human experience that we all have.
100%. As I'm talking this through, I'm thinking, you know, I'm sure, Poh, that you are seeing kind of this, like this path of, you know, it's kind of a natural progression of being drawn to the mind-body meditative kind of practices, right? But I think it was actually a lovely friend who's, I'm going to do a shout out to Rochelle.
Hi, Rochelle.
Rochelle has registered as well as a psych after completing masters. So generally registered. I met through my husband, like she was one of his friends. So I met her like 26 years ago or something.
Wow. What's your friend?
Yeah. But she lived overseas for a while. So when she moved back, and it was Rochelle, and I can't even remember the context of how this happened, but Rochelle actually introduced me to Ajahn Brahm. She'd started attending the Buddhist Society of WA. I guess she could hear that in the ideas that I was interested in, that Buddhism would perhaps be something that would be interesting but also helpful, I think. And I haven't thought about this before, but actually I think it was Rochelle that was really that person who led me to actively learning about Buddhism, you know, initially through kind of a Dharma, listening to podcasts. I wasn't even regularly meditating. And she would share with me her experience of weekend retreats, silent retreats at Anna Grove in Serpentine. And through learning about it just in conversations with her, I started listening to Ajahn Brahm on podcasts, and I just knew that I needed to go on a weekend retreat. I wanted to experience that. It was very, very hard for me. Like I couldn't attend the weekly Dharma talks, even just with the stage of motherhood that I was at. My youngest was only turning 3 when we left Perth, end of 2018, to come to Busselton. So we're talking about before moving down. So yeah, going to a weekend retreat just seemed, I guess, a bit of a way of formalizing, much in the way that yoga teaching provided me a sense of shared community, a learning space, but a reflective space and an experiential space. And that's what I felt a weekend retreat would be.
So like it's kind of like consolidating the understanding that you have learned from the podcast with Ajahn Brahm and actually put that into practice. Yeah.
Yes. And so again, I'm just thinking, it's like, do you see, as you said that to me, I'm realizing it's kind of like that intellectual attraction, or like being drawn in by that comfortable cognitive space.
Head heavy.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think psychologists are, in general, quite theory focused and like head heavy. We like to intellectualize and understand like how things work. And I guess like is that alongside with your understanding of that like, oh, I'm a neurodivergent, and like is it happening concurrently, or like I'm just following through your path? And
No.
is it a bit later? Yeah.
That was later.
Okay, right.
That's, let's see, 20. I'm losing count. It's a bit like when you have your first child and you're like, you know their age by days. Like, oh, they're 3 weeks and 5 days or whatever. And I was like that about my journey, like having to understand that I'm, but now I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, everything's just like blends in.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 2022.
Okay. So then like the learning of Buddhism was 12 years ago, or 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I think because I loved listening to Ajahn Brahm, but then I also started to branch out as well, like through listening to podcasts. Brach.
I love her podcast. Yeah.
I love listening to her. She's one of my favorite meditation teachers as well.
I agree.
And another one I really loved was, I never know how to say his name. It's Gil. So it's like, I always say Gil, Fronsdal.
I'm not familiar with her work.
It's actually a man at the Insight Meditation Center, Zen, Buddhist kind of approach. But I guess because a lot of my podcast listening would be when I was out like walking, you know, or driving somewhere, still in the thick of mothering. So the three of those teachers, they provide really down-to-earth teaching of Dharma. And that's what I needed at that stage. You know, although I say that it was like head heavy, it's still, it was, I needed.
Resonates.
Yeah, that connection. Like I loved how they simplified the teachings to make it accessible for everyday people, right? Like
definitely.
Their focus, all three of them, it wasn't about having to like become Buddhist. It was about how can I make this idea accessible to people so that they have less suffering, so that they can find more ease in life. Yeah, so when I moved down here, I'd already gone to I'd done a couple of weekend retreats. I'd done a 9-day silent retreat. I think it was around that time of the silent retreat that I kind of realized that Buddhism is an internal, like heart, like a way of being through the learnings, that I can call myself Buddhist and I don't have to be perfect at it, right? So like these kind of ideas around self-acceptance, self-compassion, I think they provided a really lovely frame. So if we go with 2022, end of 2022 was when I realized that I was neurodivergent. But actually what happened was in that year, like say 12 months before, a few of my longer term perinatal clients down here had started coming in and saying, I think I've got ADHD. Like I've seen a TikTok, you know, and I would be sitting there thinking, in here, not out loud, thinking, you don't have ADHD. You think the same as me. It's anxiety. I don't have ADHD. I've got anxiety, right? Again, this attachment to identity. And I felt sure. And those same people would end up still seeing me, but they would see a psychiatrist. They would get diagnosed as an ADHDer. And it was, I don't know, say three clients who I really knew well as well. Like I knew them well. I had seen them for a couple of years. And I found myself going, well, if they're being diagnosed as ADHD, maybe I'm missing something, right? But it didn't trigger like this imposter syndrome stuff. It was more like this kind of curiosity, like a very, again, like a compassionate sense of trusting my clients' experiences, trusting, because these same clients were also the first people to say to me, oh, the psychiatrist said that girls and women have presented differently. And so there was these little nuggets of things. But I have a lot of respect and trust for my clients. And so I thought, well, there's something I'm missing. How can I start learning about it? Posted in one of the psych closed groups and said, what's happening? Why are all these people getting diagnosed? Is it a fact? Right?
Yes.
And thankfully, I was confronted with very compassionate, gentle, but also firm responses. Many psychologists who I now interact with all the time in the neurodivergent space, essentially like, well, you've got some learning to do. You need to get with the times, you know. And so I started, like, enrolled in some webinars that Michelle Livick was running, and I had to watch the recording. I couldn't attend live. And it was literally in a moment as she's talking and describing what ADHD adolescents, girls, are often experiencing privately. And I just remember like kind of like shock and thinking, oh God, that's me, right? And in that same webinar, she basically was saying that if you have a woman come into therapy who's, say, in their 30s, who has a long history of struggling with anxiety or stress or depression, or they say, I've always been a bit of an anxious person and it seems potentially treatment resistant, right? That we should screen them. I ticked all those boxes.
Yeah.
And not just screen them for ADHD, but screen them for autism as well. And this is why. So I paused the recording, did a heap of screeners on my NovoPsych account on myself. And without yet knowing myself, like understanding all the deeper details of being ADHD and autism, on screeners, I well and truly met the criteria, and I did the CAT-Q and came up as like high masking. And then it hit me.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's kind of that background of that spiritual, like mindfulness kind of path that meant that I was even able to end up in that webinar with openness to learn for my clients, and then discovering, this seems to be me.
Yeah. And I was just listening to your experience, the experience of getting to know your clients and also like to yourself. I too had a very similar experience, but I actually started with my profession. Specialty is ADHD and autism, but like in a very traditional sense, I guess, more focus on like boys and all of that, and like train under ABA. And then eventually learning more about girls' presentation and that internalized presentation, that I realized that, oh, maybe I have to like, check in a little bit more, because I could really relate to many experiences that they have. And I did a novel side dummy client as well. So when you were saying that, it's like, oh, yes. But I guess like perhaps knowing that, our brain could be really connected, hyper connected. And that makes sense of like, you know, how our emotional experiences and how we relate to the sensory stimuli and all of that. I feel that the Buddhism understanding of that self-compassion makes a lot of sense for me. It's coming to understand my brain and also my clients' experiences, and how you were talking about that deep respect for your clients. You know, knowing that they know what they are experiencing. I think they are all like stands that I've learned through the deeper practice that I have had.
Because I don't know, Poh, if you can relate, and I think this is what you're saying. I guess I always thought I knew my mind, and the, you know, that path of mindfulness, etc., through ACT, yoga, and then meditation with Buddhism, I started to be able to really understand that the mind is, it's that sense of it's more abstract than the concrete kind of idea that I thought of my mind. You know, it's almost like before I thought my mind was like this object, like solid thing. It just is. Like it just, this is how it just thinks and feels. And I think that learning to meditate, it's helped me understand that distance that we try to teach our client, like, the thought, it's just a thought, it's not even there, right? It's external, but not in an invalid, like with Buddhism, it's not in an invalidating or dismissive way, but with this like beautiful kindness and gentleness of like, this is what my mind naturally does in a busy world, but in certain circumstances, in the right context, my mind is actually very different. You know, I think that helps me to soften to the challenges that arise in everyday life with my mind.
Yeah. Having experienced it in a different context and knowing that like your mind is more fluid and expansive.
Yes.
Maybe that's what you were saying.
Yes, expansive. Yes.
On that note of an expansive mind, we're going to pause our conversation for today. What an incredible journey Amiee has taken us on this first part, beautifully weaving together her path into psychology, the transformative experience of motherhood, her introduction to contemplative practices through ACT and yoga, and finally, this deeply personal story of discovering her own neurodivergent identity. It's a powerful testament of how self-compassion and openness can lead us to a more complete understanding of ourselves. But this is only the beginning. How does Amiee take these integrated understanding and put it into practice? What happens when you left alone with your mind for 9 days on a silent retreat? Be sure to join us for part 2. As we close our practice for today, I want to thank you for sharing this time. If this episode resonated with you, the most meaningful way to support the podcast is to share it. Share it with a colleague or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps our community to reach other people who need it. Until next time, keep your heart open, keep your mind clear and steady. Go be your amazing self as you awaken yourself and others. See you next time. Just a gentle reminder that our conversation today is for inspiration and education only. It is not a substitute for therapy or clinical supervision, and our time together doesn't constitute a therapeutic relationship.